So Robert Mueller came out yesterday, and he basically, in so many words, said, you can go ahead and start impeachment proceedings in Congress. Now, he didn't come out and flat out say it, and it's my opinion that he can just say it. It's obviously what he believes, so in my opinion, he should just say it. But he's not doing that. He's walking on eggshells. But nonetheless, it was clear he was hinting that, hey, Congress, you go right ahead and you can start impeachment proceedings over the issue of obstruction. So as a result of that, now the issue of impeachment is front and center in the conversation yet again, and Twitter lit up with talk of impeachment, and there appears to be a push behind this issue that's stronger now than I've ever seen before. So with that being said, I want to go ahead and give you an explainer as to what exactly impeachment is and how it would unfold and what it entails. And so go ahead, let's take a look here, and then we'll come back and discuss.
The first step in the impeachment process is to formally accuse the official of something like treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. The House of Representatives would draft and debate charges and evidence, otherwise known as the Articles of Impeachment. Once formalized and brought before the House, a simple majority is all it takes for the House of Representatives to render the impeachment. The U.S. has impeached 19 individuals, including 15 federal judges and 1 cabinet member, in its history. But only 8 of those have been removed from office, because what comes in the second act is an arguably more difficult task. If the House of Representatives wants to appease voters, lawmakers are also going to look at the popular opinion of the president before setting things in motion. Remember, a ton of people voted the president in. Cue a high-profile trial in the Senate. The official would obtain his or her own lawyers. A group of House members known as the impeachment managers would stand as the prosecution, with the Senate as the jury. There would be witnesses and cross-examinations, and the entire case would be presided over by the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. If 2/3 of those senators vote to convict the official of the crime, he or she would be removed from office. The official would then be subject to further indictments in federal or state courts. For a president to be convicted by a 2/3 majority, it would likely mean that members of the president's own political party would need to vote against the president. If the majority of the Senate is of the same party as the president, any impeachment proceedings would likely end with a Senate acquittal, a president remaining in office, and an impeachment process that actually raises that president's approval ratings.
So understand, this is the milquetoast USA Today impeachment explainer. And that very last line was not added by Kyle Kulinski of Secular Talk. That very last line was added by USA Today based on the history of impeachment. So, let's break this down logically for a second. If the Democrats move to impeach, it is rather apparent, at least to me, some may disagree, but it appears clear to me that most of the energy behind the impeachment movement is behind going after Trump on the issue of obstruction. Everybody seems to kind of grasp the notion now that there's really not enough evidence to move forward on the issue of collusion. Even if you think he did it, there's just not enough there, as the report states, to really go after him on the issue of collusion. So everybody's kind of digested that, and the people who are pro-impeachment have moved to let's do it over obstruction. Now, there are some characters like Rashida Tlaib who say, no, I'm focused more on emoluments than anything else. And props to her for being independent-minded and not just following the crowd and going with hopping on the impeachment bandwagon for the typical reasons. It's obvious she's thought more about this and she's more reasoned on this issue than most people. But I do think those are the fringe exceptions. So, in other words, most of the momentum, in my estimation, based on what I've seen, is on obstruction. They want to impeach on the issue of obstruction. Now, what would happen? Well, when it comes to the House, I think it is very possible the impeachment proceedings get through the House of Representatives. I think it's possible, if not likely. There are enough Democrats to make that happen. I don't know how many holdouts there could be where you still succeed with it. They just need a simple majority. So, I don't know, maybe some blue dogs say no, and maybe very few in the Progressive Caucus say no, but I would actually think most of the Progressive Caucus, if not all the Progressive Caucus, is for impeachment when push comes to shove and they have to actually act on it. I think maybe only some blue dog holdouts, but the caucus would largely hold, I think, and so you'd get impeachment through the House. So then it would go to the Senate. What would happen in the Senate? In the Senate, you need a 2/3 majority to actually succeed. It is a 100% guarantee it would not succeed in the Senate. Now, I want to be kind to people who don't necessarily have my view on this, but if you disagree with that analysis, I just think you're like hilariously wrong, because you're not going to get 2/3, not even close. So then what happens? You don't get the 2/3. It fails. Donald Trump gets at least 3 days of headlines talking about how he's Teflon Don and he's the victor and he wins again, and all of this noise came to naught. And then the most important point is the last line of that USA Today explainer, where they said, hey, listen, historically, if the president wins in the Senate on this issue, his approval rating goes up. Now, this happened with Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton ended up winning in the Senate overwhelmingly, and his approval ratings went up massively. So now some would argue, hey man, but listen, that's because the impeachment proceedings against Clinton were bullshit to begin with, and the American people could see that. They could see through it. They impeached him over a blowjob. So of course that's going to help him in his approval ratings, and we should acknowledge that. But here's the thing. The actual reason they went after him was perjury, lying under oath. And here's the thing. They're right. He lied under oath. Now, they're literally right on the substance. Literally. Hey, he did perjury. He lied under oath, so we're going to go after him. But the reaction from the American people was something along the lines of, I don't really care if he lied under oath when I don't think the question should have been asked in the first place. So what? He's technically guilty of perjury. Get beyond it. It is my opinion that if the Democrats impeach Trump over obstruction, the GOP argument wins out, not just in the Senate, but with the majority of Americans, and probably even the overwhelming majority of Americans. Why? Because the counter argument from Trump and the GOP is going to be, through a megaphone every day for weeks, the report said no evidence of collusion, and you're saying he obstructed. How can he obstruct when there was no evidence of collusion? Your argument is he obstructed when there was no original crime. That's like when the cops arrest somebody for resisting arrest. Well, what was the original thing you were trying to arrest him for? Doesn't matter. You resisted arrest. I think most people look at that and go, that's kind of weak as fuck. So by the same token, I think it's kind of weak as fuck when you say, we're going to try to impeach you over obstruction, but yeah, the same report also says there's no evidence of collusion, so you obstructed when there was no evidence of the original crime, but hey, you obstructed the investigation anyway, so we're going to go after you. It's like, I get it, and I think they're right that technically, yeah, Trump obstructed the investigation. The real question is well, why did he do that? Did he do that because I'm so guilty and I'm trying to cover it up? Or did he do it because he thinks, as he said a zillion times, this is a witch hunt and this is fucking stupid and I don't even think this should be happening, so yeah, I'm going to undermine the fuck out of it because I fucked this investigation. And again, that's why I draw the analogy or draw the comparison with Bill Clinton and perjury. Yeah, he did it. He did it. Does that mean you should really impeach over it? Well, the American people said, no, fuck you. By the same token, I think if you try to impeach Trump over obstruction, my guess is, and now it's speculation admittedly, but I'm really convinced that this is how it would unfold. Hear me now, quote me later. If they impeach over obstruction, when it dies in the Senate, not if, when it dies in the Senate, it will help Trump's approval ratings because I think their counter argument is stronger. And then it will likely help Trump for his re-election campaign. So that's, I mean, guys, you got to understand that's so crucial. Follow the logic. Follow the reasoning here. It'll likely get through the House. It'll certainly die in the Senate. When it dies in the Senate, he gets a giant victory. And it's a victory where it's not just like he's bullshitting everybody and is like, I'm winning no matter what. No, because that doesn't always land with the public because he comes across as a jackass. But when he's bragging about something and he's actually right, and he did actually beat impeachment, and again, the whole rationale for impeachment, in my estimation, was flimsy to begin with, and I'm obviously no fucking fan of Trump, but even I can see how flimsy it is. What do you think is going to happen? People are going to go, yeah, okay, yeah, he wins this one, and his approval rating will bounce back up, and it makes it more likely he gets reelected. So, when people on the left argue against impeachment, the idea that it's like, oh, you're just like irrationally soft on Donald Trump, bro. No, that's not at all a fair characterization of what our take is. It's not even close to a fair characterization. In fact, if anything, if you truly believe it's going to unfold like I just explained it, then the softer position on Trump, as in the position that will help him more, is trying to impeach over an issue like obstruction. That would actually help him more. So if you truly believe that impeaching over obstruction makes it more likely that Donald Trump gets reelected, what would your position be? And then here's the final point I want to make. If Democrats came out and they said, listen, we're done with the Russiagate thing, the collusion thing, even the obstruction thing, we're done with it. We're impeaching, but we're impeaching over emoluments. Emoluments just means corruption from the president, taking money from foreign governments, doing the bidding of foreign governments, which I think there's so much evidence, mountains of evidence that that's exactly what's happening in the case of Saudi Arabia, Israel, and others. He's taking money from them and doing favors for them. That's a direct violation of the emoluments clause of the Constitution. If the Democrats said, we're impeaching over emoluments, on principle, I would say, my hands are tied. I have to support you. I have to support you. On the issue of obstruction, I just think the case is flimsy, so I'm not going to support it because the case is flimsy and I think it will help Trump. On the issue of emoluments, on principle, I'm going to support the Democrats, even though I think it's like a 50-50 proposition as to whether or not impeaching over emoluments will help Trump or hurt Trump. The reason why I think it might hurt Trump if you impeach over emoluments is because your arguments are just super strong. The arguments are strong and they would be out there in the public for everybody to digest. And I think maybe you could impact, public opinion in your direction. But it still is possible, even if you impeach over emoluments, it could help Trump. Because again, it wouldn't get through the Senate, and then he could claim victory, and then he might even become Teflon Don if you go after him for emoluments. But point is, on emoluments, I would say, yes, as a matter of principle, I have to support your impeachment proceedings because I think he's guilty. I think he's guilty, and I think your arguments are super strong, and there's a chance it wouldn't help him. Also on the issue of Yemen, if you say to me, hey, Kyle, we're going to impeach Trump, and here's why we're going to impeach Trump. We're going to do it over the fact that we are illegally and unconstitutionally backing a literal genocide being committed in Yemen by Saudi Arabia. If you tell me we got to impeach him over that, I say to you, hey man, listen, on principle, I have to support you. Because of the severity of the crime, the overwhelming evidence, and the fact that it's a 50-50 proposition as to whether it'll hurt or help Trump in how it plays out politically. So, again, I think the arguments are super strong against Trump and his administration on that issue, and if you get that out in the court of public opinion, I think they'll largely side with the left. But, again, he would defeat it in the Senate, and when he defeats it in the Senate, there's a chance his approval rating goes up and it actually helps him, okay? But again, it's more of a 50-50 proposition. It could hurt Trump, it could help Trump, not sure. But again, I would support that because I'd say on principle, the crime is so severe and the evidence is so overwhelming and your argument is so strong that I have to support it. But I just can't bring myself to support it over obstruction because I think the arguments are really, really weak. And I think you would get kind of obliterated in the court of public opinion, and I think it would unfold largely like the Bill Clinton situation. So I know that some people in my audience are very much on the side of impeachment. Hey man, that's fine. All I ask of you is don't fucking straw man the people who are not for impeachment. Because there's a reason why about half the left, the actual left, not the Pelosi neoliberal corporate Democrat losers, there's a reason why like half the left is against it. And it's a lot more thoughtful and complex than, oh, you want to be fucking soft on Trump? You want to be soft on him? I just told you I would support impeachment on principle over Yemen or support it on principle over emoluments, okay? So the issue is not being soft on him. The issue is we're afraid you might actually give him a second term if you impeach on such flimsy-ass grounds. So anyway, that's my breakdown of that issue. I think people, instead of like just kind of going along with the narrative because it's what's cool right now and it's what's popular right now and it's what's center stage right now, instead of doing that, try your best to, think about this rationally and think what really makes sense here and what's really likely to happen, how's it going to unfold, and how's this going to impact left goals? Because that's all I care about. The thing I care about most is left goals. The thing I care about most, I want to get Medicare for all implemented. I want to get free college implemented. I want to get a living wage implemented. I want to end the wars. I want to legalize marijuana. You guys know the litany of policy beliefs I care about. So my whole breakdown and my whole analysis of the situation is through that lens and through that perspective. What is going to be better for the left? What is going to be better for, what's going to make it more likely we actually fix this country and improve everybody's life? And that's why I have the position that I have. So hopefully some of you guys see it and you think it's reasonable. If you don't, that's fine. I just ask that you don't strawman the shit out of us because in our mind, we're actually being tougher on Trump. So anyway, that's my breakdown of it. Now you know the details of impeachment. Now you know how it's likely to unfold, and we'll see what happens moving forward.